Welcome to The New Next, a podcast that addresses current events and how they will impact the future. Co-hosted by the inquisitive public speaking champion, Mike McVeigh, and energy, economics, and technology expert, Matt Jensen. Join us as we explore all things energy, economic, tech, and political, and how they will affect our future.
So you want to talk about this Monmouth University poll?
I glanced at it. I guess I thought it was a poll to take, not a poll that was done. So, yeah, why don't you give us a quick overview on that, and we'll see if it's interesting to talk about.
Well, so we talked about the other week. We talked about that survey, the Statisa survey,
right.
And that was done over basically a year. So I thought maybe we could talk about this.
Okay.
As I would say a difference from that. One of the things in particular that I thought might be interesting to talk about was that we were kind of talking around what the role of abortion might play in having people turn out to vote. Mm-hmm. So just for this is, well, we'll put it in the show notes, but they did they basically do monthly polls to track a bunch of questions like, do you feel the economy is on the right track or the country is on the right track, et cetera. And then they do certain political party polling.
Okay.
So on page 3, June 23rd to 27th, they have, they basically have congressional party control preference. So 48 to 47 for Republicans and 44 to 47 for Democrats. And that's from before to after the abortion ruling. So I don't really necessarily have the sample size for the group that they talk to. Again, there is a margin of error of 3.1%, but I did see in here that, who would you like to see control Congress, or does this matter to you? It's been pretty consistent with Republicans, about 36% over January, March, May, and June. Democrats, pretty consistent, 33, 33, 34, and then 38 in June. And
which page are you on?
Number 5. So question 3. So it's
okay. There we go.
It's interesting, I think, because one of the questions that we were with the abortion ruling that we were curious about was things haven't been going very, very well for the Democrats, with inflation and economically. A lot of people are pretty upset about that. But we were curious whether or not a reverse abortion, which I think even people that disagree with it, there's a lot of people that probably disagree with it, but still want people to have that right. So it was just kind of interesting to see that it caused such a huge spike, 4% in an electorate. Granted, we're not in a national election year. And when it comes to fall, I would say that the elections that are up for grabs are pretty tilted pretty well for the Republicans to kind of make a big inroad with it.
Right.
But it'll still be interesting to see what the results are. But I think it's just kind of one of those triggering events that really could change things.
Yeah, it is interesting. If you add up the total from January, there's at least leaning to the right. It shows a total of 45% leaning Republican or staunchly Republican, whereas it's just a total of 43%, which isn't much difference. It's 2% difference. but it's both of them are right at 47% right now. If you do the does not matter but leans, so it's gonna be kind of fun. It definitely will help either hamper. Well, of course, I would say his presidency has been hampered from the beginning, but it might hamper more. Now, this is a pretty cool survey. Now that I kind of have a little bit more context for why you shared it.
Yeah. Well, and then question 7 too. What is the biggest concern facing your family right now? They don't ask the same stuff every single month. So they've only been asking inflation from July 2021, but July 2021 it was 5%. December 2021 it was 14%, and inflation now is 33%. So you have inflation and gas prices making up 48% of the biggest concern facing your family right now. And and you add the economy in there too, then you're like almost 60%. So it's
then right under that's the grocery bill.
Yeah.
Bills and stuff. So it's it goes into the issues after that. But yeah, you're right. You've got a total of about 63% or so that's just on how do we pay for stuff.
Well, coronavirus too is gone from 57% in March 2020 to 1% in June 2022. So
that sounds about accurate.
Yeah. So it's basically fallen off dramatically. It's interesting to see these trends over time. And how maybe influenced by the media of the moment things are too. But I think it's really hard to win elections when whether or not it's your fault, just being unbiased here, is that if the economy falls apart while you're in office and you run everything. So it's hard to...
If you add on to the next question, number 8, it's asking, thinking about this previous question, number 7, have the actions of the federal government over the past 6 months helped, hurt, or had no real impact? And it went from a year ago, it went from 31% where the government was helpful to 8% helpful in June 2022. Yeah. It went from 34% hurtful to 57% hurtful.
Yeah.
And then the no real impact has stayed about the same, 31% to 34%. So that's I'm going to definitely have to look over this some more. And maybe we'll talk about, because there's some really good questions on here too. And it talks about the methodology, which is always fun for nerds like me.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I thought with number 10 too, that's the one I was actually thinking. Yeah. Thinking about your current financial situation, would you say that you're struggling to remain where you are financially, basically stable, or your financial situation is improving? So it's gone from, in June 2021, they do this annually, it's gone from 24% struggling to 42% struggling, and from 58% stable to 47% stable, and improving's way down too. So I think, it's not great. So.
Yeah, and this is actually a significant little outlier because normally they don't know, like I don't know. It's dropped 200% from 3% to 1% of saying they don't know. So people know if they're struggling, they're stable or improving a lot more than they did a year ago. So that also makes sense based on some of the other stuff going on. But this I'm definitely going to have to keep a link of this because my nerd factor is definitely going on.
Well, so it's like there's a lot of questions. Maybe the last one that we'll talk about is this. They had how have each of the following groups benefited from President Biden's policies so far? Mm-hmm. Have they benefited a lot, a little, or not at all? and they grouped them by middle class families, wealthy families, and poor families. So, it's kind of probably to be expected, but and it compares to Trump and Obama. Like a lot of people felt that from the poor families felt that they benefit a lot more from Obama than Trump and Biden. But Biden's benefited a lot has fallen from July 2021 from 31% to 13%. And
that's when the last checks went out too, wasn't it? In July 20 or like May 2021.
That's interesting.
So if you take that into account, and I wouldn't even be surprised because if you look under the benefit under, although that's the wrong year.
But if you, looking at like the wealthy and middle class, you have a lot better benefited under Trump on here for financial prospects and wealthy and middle class. So,
but that's not, I don't think that's really a shock just based on campaign promises, because that's who, Trump was basically for and stuff, and Biden isn't necessarily for the wealthy based on some of his campaign stuff as well. So I think that's, even Obama, I think that's consistent with what they said they were going to be.
Yeah. I think so. It kind of looks like overall Obama looks like kind of the winner here for
and
people see as benefiting him.
And the world is so different now than it was in 2013 and 2017 when you see some of these things being taken. It'd be interesting to see the 2-year middle part for Obama, because we see the 2 years for Trump. We don't have. I'd kind of like to see more statistics so I could see it year by year, as opposed to just you have a 4-year gap, and then you have a 1-year gap, and then you have a 2-year gap, and then it's every year. That's kind of unfair to all three of them. If you would like to learn more about the New Next podcast, find us at thenewnextpodcast.com, where you can suggest a topic you would like for us to cover. If you enjoyed what you heard, share the podcast, tell a friend about it, or rate us with 5 stars.